Hello and welcome to another Project Falcon Punch end of year discussion for 2019. Sounds weird me saying that actually, but today I have Scott with me.
Hello.
Previously of Super O&M, now of G Arcade.
Yep, we merged in earlier this year to the new bigger community in G Arcade, which is all seeming to be going okay.
Yeah, and it's active, which is the best thing you can hope for.
Yeah, that's kind of why it happened.
How has 2018 been for you?
It's been a good year. Yeah, my own life been carrying on as normal. Games-wise, as we're talking about today, there's been another good year of games, I think.
Yeah, I would agree with that. We're recording this early 2019, so I guess we're speaking about 2018 in the past tense, which is already sounding weird. I can't believe we're already in 2019. This is crazy.
It's very futuristic, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Next year's 2020, and that's going to make me feel very, very old.
Well, this is the year of Blade Runner, so we're actually in the future.
Speaking of future, let's go... No, that's the wrong thing. We're talking about the past, aren't we? Damn it. Number 5, Scott. What have you got down for your number 5?
Yeah, so I'm going to start by blindsiding you, I think, with a game that I don't think you'll have played or know much about.
Okay.
And that's Faerun Collection on the Switch.
Yeah, I don't even know if I've heard of this. I feel like most years I'm pretty up to date with most people's lists, but yeah, I don't even know what this is.
I think this might be the only one, so don't worry. So it's by a Japanese indie called Skipmore. The game you might know better, there was an early Switch eShop title called Kamiko.
Yes, I know that one.
Yep, so that is the same developer, and
right.
He made these games beforehand. They actually share a lot of design elements, like they have the same enemy designs and stuff in them. The original Faerun was originally a mobile game, and then it came to 3DS, I think, first. So this is a packaged up collection of Faerun 1 and 2. The sequel was a 3DS game as well, and then it's also got 2 previously unreleased games in it that were kind of added on extra. I had previously played the first game on Vita when it got ported there. I hadn't heard of it until I just randomly saw it in the Vita shop, and after playing that I then played the sequel on 3DS.
Wow, okay. Would you recommend this to like most people or a specific type?
Probably not. It's probably not for everyone. I see them as kind of hidden gems. At first glance they look like they might be top-down Zelda-like games.
Right, okay.
They definitely share some DNA with them, but they're much more just about puzzle solving. So they're like puzzle adventure games where you're kind of finding items and working out where you'd actually use them on the map to move on. In a way that's almost like a point-and-click adventure game, apart from using a top-down view.
Right, okay, yeah, sure.
They're all really short games. Kamiko you can blast through in basically an hour. These two, the first game takes about an hour to 2 hours, and the second game is maybe 3 to 4 hours.
Was the second one more sort of complicated in its combat or anything, or?
No, so the combat in these games is you literally just walk into an enemy and they die and you take some damage.
Right, okay.
And if you're higher level, you kill them without taking damage, and if they're too higher level, you don't kill them, you just take damage. So it's not about the combat. They're basically there to let you know that you're in the right place on the map for the next puzzle. If you're the level that's killing the enemies, you know you're in the right place. So they're kind of more like there as a guide.
I think I would definitely check this out, or at least look at it on the store to see if I think this is something for me. But yeah, this sounds cool.
It's interesting because it's different.
Definitely. Okay, Scott, what have you got for your number 4?
Right, number 4 is one you could probably predict. It's my annual Monster Hunter entry. But it's probably not the one you're expecting, because it's not Monster Hunter World, but it's Generations Ultimate on the Switch.
Okay, I've been seeing that you've been playing a lot of this recently, actually.
Yeah, it came out in August, whereas World came out right at the start of the year in January.
Yeah.
But I've actually played roughly the same amount of time of both. I think I've played 80 hours of World, and I'm now on 70 of this.
So Generations is it's the port for 3DS game, right?
Yeah, so it's the HD expansion of, because it has more content.
Gotcha.
The 3DS game was my 5th game when we did this list in 2016. My thoughts on the game are probably pretty similar, as most of the extra content is at the end game, which I haven't yet reached. There are a few new tweaks to the gameplay in this Ultimate Edition.
What's your weapon of choice in this game?
So, as always, I'm using bowguns, or specifically heavy bowguns, because I like shooting things.
Whenever I've tried Monster Hunter or played Monster Hunter, I could never get into the shooting bowgun stuff. I always find it hard to use.
They play very differently to the other weapons in the game. There's a big difference between the old style Monster Hunter, which Generations Ultimate still is, and World. In World, they completely revamped the shooting, and it plays pretty much like a third-person shooter now, and is way more accessible. I don't know if you have World.
I do, in fact.
But yeah, it's probably worth trying out the shooting in that.
I'm guessing, is World on your list, or is that a spoiler for now?
It's not. I don't want to have 2 Monster Hunter games.
I will speak for this thing, because I played a lot of World this year, you'll be surprised, and this is the first Monster Hunter game I've put loads of hours into, and I've really enjoyed it.
Is that because you think it's a lot more accessible now? I know lots of people praised it as being a big step forward for the series.
I think it is. It's hugely accessible for me now. I think it's because I've dabbled in Monster Hunter before, so I know the basic mechanics, but this game is like, this has really hooked me now. And I've been playing with the insect glaive. That's just so fun just to jump around. I love that weapon so much.
It is a great weapon. I think that came in 4 and has been like an instant favourite of people ever since.
Yeah. Mounting the monsters is just so satisfying to take them down.
Yeah, it is a great mechanic, and you can tell that it's a good one because every game they add a new mechanic, and then often they just are there for that game and then disappear.
Yeah, like the water in 3.
Yeah, exactly. But with the mounting, that's now like a core part of the Monster Hunter gameplay because it works so well.
Like the climbing in general, that was introduced in 4 as well, wasn't it? And
yeah,
it's mad to me think now that 3 had none of that stuff.
Exactly, yeah. It is hard to go back, and a readjustment going back to Generations Ultimate after playing World.
Yeah, that's the thing I'm interested in playing Generations, because as someone who enjoyed World, would this feel like almost like a backward step, or is it just it's got so much content that's why you put it here?
Yeah, I think that the reasons I prefer it over World, one is portability. I think I've said this before, but I've always played Monster Hunter as a like handheld series. As much as it is fun playing Monster Hunter World on a big screen, I just like on the bus on the way to work being able to just do a hunting quest. It's just so much more convenient having it on Switch. And then, as you say, the content, the monster variety. So I think in World there's like, I think 50 about monsters, whereas in Generations Ultimate there's about 130.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So for content alone, Generations has World hands down beat. And it's not just the number, but the variety that's in there as well. There's a lot of different types of monsters. There is the nostalgia element as well. Generations specifically plays to that a lot, and obviously as a long-term fan, that's aimed at me.
Yeah. Okay then, Scott, what have you got down as your number 3?
Okay, number 3, going to be controversial, I think, and that's A Way Out.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm with you on this. I really like this game.
Oh, cool. So I thought that could go one or two ways. I thought you probably played it.
I have.
A lot of people didn't particularly care for it.
Yeah, they didn't like the story and the characters, which I kind of get, but playing this in co-op with a friend was just so cool. I love it.
Yeah, the story it's basically a B-movie like plot.
Yeah.
And like these characters. But I find it really endearing. Like I'm one of those people who likes watching B-movies like that. And I think it's probably deliberate. And the gameplay itself, because there's so much variety, it's all quite janky, but never in an unplayable way. But it never feels like a highly polished AAA game. But that kind of suits the whole B-movie like styling.
Yeah, there's always something else to do. There's always like a new mechanic or like...
Yeah, it's just, I'd call it genre hopping rather than putting it in a genre, because it never stays still. As soon as you think you've just settled into a certain type of game, it just switches completely and surprises you by going in a completely new direction.
I know towards the end there's like this bit where you go on this island and there's actual shooting mechanics. I remember thinking, oh, this feels a bit weird, because the rest of the game is clearly not a shooter, and then now you're playing as a third-person shooter that, like, say, it's a B-movie setting and it feels like a B-level sort of game as well in that sense.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, if they released the whole game of that shooting, it would be rightly panned. Yeah. But because it's like one short level and it's novel to the game...
Yeah, it lasts like 15 minutes or something.
Exactly. The one standout section for me was when you're in the hospital. It was actually this like impressive directed sequence where it was switching between the two characters with the camera like moving without cutting through like pipes and vents and through screens. But then suddenly it locks into a side-scrolling perspective, and it's like a side-scrolling arcade beat-em-up.
Yeah.
It's things like that. I think the game, like, unashamedly a video game, and it like celebrates being a video game and has all these different styles of gameplay.
The co-op aspect of it is just so cool, I think, in so many ways.
Yeah, they really committed themselves to being co-op only, and I think that allows them to do some really cool stuff. There's stuff in this game that I've really experienced in any other game, especially the ending. Don't want to give any spoilers, but for all I said about the game being like janky and quite funny, I actually found the ending genuinely good.
Yeah, I did as well.
That's because like it's something that's only possible in a game that is co-op only.
Yeah, without spoiling it, it really flips the entire sequence on its head, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, it's that novelty plus the like commitment to being a variety package of co-op only gaming that I really enjoyed.
I'm really glad there's someone else out there that enjoyed A Way Out.
I'm glad too.
Okay, Scott, what is your number 2?
So number 2, it's in a genre that this year I could have filled all 5 places from if I'd wanted to, which is Metroidvanias. Just to list some of the ones that I've been playing this year, there's been like Yoku's Island Express, which was had its pinball design, which was really cool.
Yep.
Alwa's Awakening, I think a lesser well-known one, which is like a faithful NES styled game. And then I've just finished playing Guacamelee 2, which is like an even better sequel to what was already a great Metroidvania. I think better than all of them, and it's probably the best Metroidvania I've played, is Hollow Knight.
Oh, right, yeah.
I know technically this was released in 2017, 2017. Obviously, it came to Switch in 2018, and that's where I played it. I'm hoping that counts.
Yeah, it's your list, Scott. You do what you want. That's what I always say.
I absolutely fell in love with Hollow Knight. It's like plays exactly how I want a Metroidvania to play, where it really respects the player's own agency and requires you to go out and explore. And then it's got this really cool, almost for fear of saying it, Dark Souls-like lore. The gameplay itself, it plays really well. It has genuinely difficult combat, but it's always your fault if you go wrong. I'm guessing you haven't played it then?
I haven't, no. I'm familiar with the game enough, but yeah, I've not played it. It's one of those games a bit like sort of Dead Cells. There's a few games that I feel like that were big sort of indie games on the Switch that came out in 2018 that I just didn't pick up. And yeah, Hollow Knight was one of those ones that I was very close to getting, but just didn't get round to it in the end.
If you like Metroidvanias, I think it's an easy recommendation. And even if you don't, I think a lot of people would appreciate it for how well created the world is.
Yeah. It is all like a bespoke level, right? It isn't just like...
Yeah, it's 100% designed and created. It's not got any procedural generation or anything like that.
Yeah. Okay, Scott, what is your favourite game of 2018 then?
Also, my game of the year 2018 is Celeste.
Yeah, I thought I saw this one coming because I checked your profile the other day and saw you play like 60 hours of this game or something.
Yeah, I don't think it was quite 60, but it was...
Was it not? Oh.
Definitely a lot up there.
Okay.
Yeah, I have waxed lyrical about this game ever since it came out because it was way early in 2018, but my opinion of it has not dropped one bit. I find it like it's genuinely like one of the best games I've played. And part of that is that it's not just a really perfectly made game, but it's one of those few games I would actually say is like a video game as art as well. So it has this perfect harmony of gameplay mechanics to its story thematics. The game is about overcoming adversity and like never giving up. The whole plot of the game is you're climbing Celeste Mountain. That's the objective. You're physically climbing it, but it's also almost allegorical because the main character Madeline is overcoming her anxiety and learning to like accept herself and better herself, which is played out perfectly in later chapters in ways I probably don't want to spoil.
Yeah, there's hints of it early on. I've only played about sort of 2-3 hours of this game, so I've not got that deep into it. But yeah, I would definitely say that there's a lot of hints to that sort of psychological part of it early on. Like on the phone to her mum, for example, like it's quite overt that this is something that's in her head, basically.
Yeah, it's really quite touching. It only gets more explicit as the game goes on. And I think as a player, you can like almost intuitively relate to that because it's the same experience that you're having through the gameplay, because the gameplay is all about continuously dying to the difficult platforming but always learning from your mistakes until you eventually overcome the screen and move on. And that's exactly what's happening in the story as well. My one complaint is that on the Switch, the D-pad on the Switch is, well, it's not a D-pad, so it's very hard to play this game with because you can't really do the diagonal movements very easily. So I was using the stick as well, but the stick is not as good as a good D-pad. I kind of just powered through and persevered, and while it came up occasionally where I'd make a mistake because of the stick rather than because of my own mistake, I think I just persevered enough to make it less of a problem. As platformers go, it's one of my favourites for sure. There's this like nuanced depth to the mechanics. Like they're always available. Like the controls would allow you to do it throughout the game, but you're likely not going to discover them until you get to the point in the game which teaches you about them. And I think the game deserves credit for doing that. There's like some specific mechanics that if you know about them you can do in the first level, but don't actually become needed, so you're likely not to even come across them until like the final level, or even in the post-game content, which I guess the majority of players will probably never see.
It's hard as well, basically, isn't it?
It's a very difficult game. In the post-game content especially, there was one level which, if you do it right, it takes less than a minute to do the level, and I spent over 3 hours on it because it was so difficult. Those 3 hours were me just constantly getting a little bit further every time. I'd like to call it optimistically difficult. The game doesn't gloat at you and revel in its difficulty.
Yeah, luckily whenever you die, you just go straight back to the...
Yeah, it's instant, and it always feels like the game's on your side and wanting you to succeed.
Yeah. Well, I think that is a pretty good game to cap off 2018 then.
Yeah, it's probably the game that's going to stick longest in my memory, and the best of a great set of games throughout the year.
Thank you once again for coming on, Scott. It's always a pleasure having you here.
Thank you for having me. It's always fun to be here.
Did you want to plug any of your stuff, like your Twitter and whatnot?
I hardly use my Twitter, as you've probably noticed.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, if anyone wants to come along to G-Arcade, it's a great little gaming community, and that's garcade.co.uk. And then myself personally, you can find at my website, which is orkn.uk.
Okay, I'll put all the links down in the description below, and everyone, I encourage you to check it out, because G-Arcade is a thriving community, and it's a bunch of good people there, including Scott yourself.
Thank you very much.
Well, until next year, I'll speak to you then.
Yeah, bye.